or to certain military bases in the event that we were invaded by the Soviet Army and our frontline military and political leadership was either captured or executed.
Yeah.
I remember discussing that with my father, and in fact, my brother and I pulled the little sort of Chinese fortune cookie, battle orders out of this little toothpick-like device on his dresser when we were little boys. Those were the little instructions that the different officers in the Second Reserve had in the event that they were activated. So I don't think we can underestimate the extent to which the keen pressures, or at least the paranoid ideations of the Cold War, relative to the extraterrestrial presence and the potential of the former Soviet Union attempting to achieve world conquest, was actually driving the way in which these emerging time travel technologies were handled by the U.S. government. And I think that that's another thing that's motivating me to speak out. It was because of those Cold War pressures that they did not make teleportation a universal form of human transportation. And the result was that billions of tons of pollutants entered our atmosphere just from airplane rides. And now we're looking at, climate change, the possibility that we'll have widespread coastal flooding or possibly the fomenting of a new ice age resulting from global warming, something that we can affect and are affecting, even if it's cosmic in origin. We're still having an impact
Right.
on the natural environment.
Right.
And here we had a technology that could have been used to keep literally billions of tons of greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. I think I have an obligation, a moral obligation to my fellow human beings to speak out about these facts, because we may need to use teleportation to save our civilization. And so that's also motivating me to talk about teleportation as the important environmental issue that I think it is.
What would that mean more if we apply that to today? How could teleportation help us get out some of these our current situations, so to speak?
Well, you'd have teleports at all of the major urban hubs, and if somebody wanted to get between a distant city, obviously light rail and more efficient auto transport would certainly still make sense because we have a vast road network around the world. In fact, in all that blacktop of road networks we have around the world, we could put filaments that would use the heat exchange during the day on the roads to power the rest of our entire global civilization. We have enough heat exchange just on our roads that if we began to capture that, we could actually power the whole planet just from our road network in that way.
Yes.
There are specialized filaments that could be buried in the macadam of our roads to gather the heat as the roads heat up under the impress of the sun during the day, and use that heat exchange for energy production. But what we certainly should be thinking about is establishing teleports at all of the major urban hubs, so that if you wanted to jump from New York to Paris, you wouldn't have to sit on a plane for 5 or 10 hours, but could get there in several seconds. Imagine people who have to travel, let's say, between, Sydney, Australia, and London, England. I mean, that's a 24-hour plane ride. People are exposed to radiation. They're exposed to catastrophic failure of the plane. And they're exposed to just the health effects and the blood clots and so forth that
Yes.
form when you're cooped up in an airplane for 24 hours. Well, if we had adopted teleportation, Tesla-based teleportation, when it was reduced to practice by the U.S. defense technical community around 1968, we would be living in a world in which you could jump between major cities in a vortal tunnel propagated through the fabric of time-space. Now, that is a dangerous way to travel, but it's a way of traveling that was made as safe as air travel was when I was a kid on the project. The only major mishap that I'm aware of that happened, in fact, I was a witness of it, is that we had a set of exercises in 1971 in which kids were jumping through different teleports in different parts of the country, mostly on the East Coast, and alighting there in the vicinity of the Bataan Memorial Building in the Santa Fe State Capitol Complex. And we were sort of in different teams because we were from the different regiments of the children, the cadre of children in the project. And we were racing to get to the collection area, which is a small ochre-colored retaining wall right on the periphery there of the Bataan Memorial Building, right between the building and the grass. and one of the children popped into view standing in a public fountain that had been leaking and that had about 3 inches of water in it. And as a result, because of the specific gravity of the water, his feet arrived slightly later than he did, and he slid off his feet at the ankle. Excuse me, at the ankles. Pardon me, a truck just went by. So he lost his feet. As I ran past his location, I could see his feet in red kid sneakers sitting in the fountain, and he was over on the side of the fountain on the ground, and it looked as if his feet had been removed from his body with a bandsaw, let's say at the ankles.
Uh-huh.
And there were already three team leaders there, and he was writhing on the ground, screaming, my feet, what am I going to do without any feet? I'm only 9 years old. Well, that's a pretty horrific scene from my book, okay? That's one of the more disturbing things that happened or that I witnessed when I was on the project.
Yeah. But
people die in airplane crashes, and that can't be a particularly pleasant experience. It certainly is more instantaneous than losing your feet, but all travel, all human activity engenders risk.
Yes.
In fact, my dad was committed to the prospect that it was ethical and moral for him to involve one of his children in this research and development project on behalf of the United States, albeit the fact that it was dangerous, because all parental interaction with children throughout human history has involved some danger. He used the example of what if you had an early tribe of human beings who had to move across a river to find more fertile hunting ground or to escape a forest fire. Sometimes they put their children on their shoulders, and sometimes crossing the river, one or several of the children drowned. Life on Earth is tenuous, and all human activity invites risk.
That's right.
And I think, in fact, my dad made the right decision in that sense. I could have taken a plane ride to visit my grandmother in Pennsylvania and died. So why avoid participating in the early days of time-space exploration if you're afraid of being injured? That was his position. In fact, I think that's mine as well.
Yeah.
But in any case, teleportation, because it involves less risk than air travel, is also something that should have been introduced on that basis, that once it was standardized to practice, as long as they avoided dangers like water being collected at the end. For example, if you had a contained area that was monitored as the place where people would be popping into view. You jump through the teleport, you would jump through this curtain of energy, let's say at the Kennedy Airport in New York, and you would pop into view in a room just like the rooms outside your gate when you get off a plane. And you wouldn't go through those hours and hours of sitting in an uncomfortable posture with bad air,
right,
and breathing everybody else's germs and all that.
Yep.
So what we would do is we would use teleportation to remove all of that pollution from air travel and all of the impact on life forms on Earth in the terrestrial, real-time environment.
Yes.
By not going across time, but through time. By tunneling through time and then traveling across it.
And if we briefly touch upon this, because I do want to get to some of the aspects of Mars here, what it was like there and so forth. But
okay.
Why do you think then that this technology is being withheld? Would the implementation of the technology be to change the future in the eyes of those who have access to the technology according to the rules, so to speak? And is that why they are not making it available, or is it for more monetarily and even military agenda, so to speak, why they're withholding the technology?
Well, we know that Tesla's teleportation technology was weaponized because there were a team of 2 War Department agents and 2 FBI agents, and the Department of War officials got to his apartment in Manhattan first and seized his paperwork. So we have the historical fact that Tesla's papers were sequestered as state secrets by the U.S. defense community. And we know that they were placed in the weapons division at the Los-Alamos National Labs because that's what Harold Agnew was directing when my father and I met with him in 1967-68, so my father could present to him the prospectus involving the testing of teleportation on civilian adults and children. Okay, so we have the fact that it was weaponized.
Yes.
Now teleportation was spoken of as a military secret when I was on the project. For example, there was a meet and greet that Donald Rumsfeld gave in an amphitheater at the Cerrillos Cultural Center site in Cerrillos, New Mexico, outside of Santa Fe. There was an underground amphitheater there that actually, if you get on that property, you can actually see the amphitheater because the roof